The story begins in the Joseon era, where Heo Im, a prominent doctor of traditional Oriental medicine, has become famous for his skill in acupuncture and treatment of various diseases. Despite his talent and fame among the common people, he dreams of more recognition in the royal court. His thirst for fame and success leads him to decide to treat dignitaries in hopes of being promoted to become the royal physician. However, his ambitions are jeopardized when he encounters failure while treating an important patient from the royal family. Despite his best efforts and knowledge, he fails to save the patient, and this seriously undermines his reputation. In despair and ashamed of his failure, Heo Im feels that his career as a doctor has come to an end. He is deeply disappointed and depressed, realizing that his dreams of a great career are likely to go unrealized. At this point, something inexplicable happens. One night, as Heo Im walks through the streets pondering his fate, he is suddenly pulled into a mysterious time vortex. In the blink of an eye, he is transported from his time to modern-day Seoul. He is completely disoriented and shocked. Everything around him looks completely different than he has ever seen before. The modern buildings, the cars, the people dressed in clothes he doesn't recognize. It all makes him fearful and bewildered. He cannot understand how he came to be in this world and what has happened to him. At this time, we meet Choi Yeon-kyung, a talented and determined heart surgeon working in one of the best hospitals in Seoul. Choi Yeon-kyung is characterized by her strong character, high professionalism, and scientific approach to medicine. She absolutely believes in the power of modern science and does not recognize traditional methods of treatment as outdated and ineffective. Yeon-kyung leads a strict and disciplined life, fully immersed in her work. She works day and night to save patients' lives and believes that modern medicine is the key to saving them. When Heo Im appears on the streets of modern Seoul, he finds himself completely lost. He faces problems. His old-fashioned clothes attract unnecessary attention. He doesn't understand any technology or even the simplest modern habits. He looks like a man who has escaped from a historical museum. People around him laugh at his strange appearance, and he himself feels that he is in a hopeless situation. Quite by chance, Heo Im finds himself near the hospital where Choi Yeon-kyung works. When he decides to enter the building, something surprising happens. He witnesses one of the patients lose consciousness on the threshold of the hospital. The doctors at the hospital treat the patient using all modern methods, but the patient's condition does not improve. Heo Im, having no idea about modern medicine, decides to intervene by acting as he is used to. He uses his acupuncture needles and begins treatment right on the spot. Choi Yeon-kyung, watching this, becomes enraged. She thinks Heo Im's actions are absolutely ridiculous and dangerous, especially in the face of a serious medical case. However, to her surprise, the patient's condition suddenly improves after Heo Im's intervention. This causes confusion among the doctors, including Yeon-kyung. She can't believe that acupuncture could have worked in such a situation. Despite the success, there is immediate conflict between Heo Im and Choi Yeon-kyung. She is dismissive of his treatment methods, believing them to be archaic and scientifically unproven. Heo Im, on the other hand, is shocked by her arrogant attitude and complete rejection of traditional medicine, which has been helping people for centuries. They argue in front of other doctors and patients, and this dispute soon becomes the basis of their future relationship. After the unexpected success of a patient's acupuncture treatment, Heo Im faces a harsh reaction from Choi Yeon-kyung. Their initial medical conflict turns into a personal confrontation. Yeon-kyung, who believes only in modern scientific methods, views traditional medicine as archaic and unscientific. However, her skepticism is only fueled after she sees the result of Heo Im's work. Although the patient's condition has improved, she cannot accept that this is due to acupuncture. To her, it is more of a coincidence than the result of real help. Meanwhile, Heo Im, trying to understand what has happened to him, continues to explore the modern world, which seems mysterious and incomprehensible to him. He experiences profound culture shock. Everyday things like telephones, computers, and even electricity seem like magic to him. He watches people seek medical attention in hospitals and doesn't understand why no one uses the traditional treatments he has devoted his life to. Heo Im is looking for a way to return to his era, but doesn't know how to do it. He comes to realize that his transport to the future was not accidental and that perhaps he has a mission to fulfill. At the same time, he realizes that his skills can be useful in the modern world as well, especially in situations where modern methods are powerless. However, Heo Im continues to face distrust and disdain from doctors and especially Choi Yeon-kyung. Yeon-kyung, despite her resistance to traditional treatments, is forced to admit that Heo Im is not just a quack. His confidence in his skills and his ability to see the causes of disease from a different angle make her vaguely curious. However, her professional pride and beliefs prevent her from recognizing the value of Eastern medicine. She believes that only modern technology and scientific research can guarantee results. Nevertheless, she is not abandoned by the thought that what happened to the patient was not an accident. Despite their disagreement, Heo Im and Yeon-kyung begin to clash more often. The situation becomes more complicated when a new patient shows up at the hospital with a severe case that the doctors can't handle with traditional medical procedures. The patient's condition worsens, and as usual, Yeon-kyung relies on science. But nothing works. In desperation, she begins to consider all her options and, despite her beliefs, remembers how Heo Im had previously helped another patient. She doesn't want to admit that she might be wrong, but she can't ignore his success. Her internal conflict intensifies when Heo Im offers his help again. He confidently says he can cure the patient with his acupuncture technique, and though Yeon-kyung is adamantly opposed at first, the situation demands decisive action. Yeon-kyung's colleagues are also skeptical, but seeing the hopelessness of the situation, they agree to give it a try. This is the moment when Yeon-kyung is forced to take a step back and accept that maybe there is something she doesn't understand or doesn't want to admit. Heo Im does her therapy, and the results are immediate. A patient who was already thought to be hopeless begins to recover. For Yeon-kyung, it's a shock. She sees it with her own eyes, but her rational mind refuses to accept that such a treatment could be effective. Her pride makes her reject what's happening, but her inner world begins to crumble. Her confidence in modern medical methods is in question. Heo Im, for his part, shows respect for her knowledge and skills, but never fails to emphasize that there is room for ancient methods of treatment. After this incident, Yeon-kyung increasingly thinks that Eastern medicine may have a right to exist, but she still can't fully trust Heo Im. Meanwhile, Heo Im continues to study and research modern medicine, trying to understand what's going on in this world that's new to him. He begins to realize that each treatment method has its own strengths and weaknesses, and that combining them could be of the greatest benefit to patients. Although the relationship between Heo Im and Yeon-kyung remains strained, they both begin to see each other's value. Heo Im respects her for her knowledge and dedication to patients, and Yeon-kyung can't ignore the fact that he truly cares about people and has unique skills that can save lives. After successfully treating a patient with acupuncture, Heo Im is gaining more and more attention. His methods are admired by the patients, but continue to cause distrust and doubt among the doctors, especially Choi Yeon-kyung. However, despite her continued skepticism, she begins to realize that Heo Im is no ordinary quack, but a man with real skills. Although her pride doesn't allow her to admit it right away, she slowly begins to consider giving him a chance. Meanwhile, Heo Im, faced with the new realities and technologies of today, is trying to adapt to a world that is completely foreign to him. He continues to learn by observing the work of modern doctors and begins to realize that modern methods have their value as well. He is interested in how medical science has advanced, but at the same time he cannot understand why time-honored methods such as acupuncture are ignored. The internal conflict between past and present intensifies. Gradually, Heo Im begins to provide more and more care at the hospital. Patients who have heard of his skills begin to come to him for treatment, and his methods become more and more popular. For some, it's their last chance for recovery, and they believe that it's his traditional knowledge that can save their lives. But for Choi Yeon-kyung, it becomes another point of contention. She can't accept that a man who came from the past can treat patients on an equal footing with her. She still believes that the scientific approach to medicine is the only right way, and that Eastern medicine is still something underdeveloped and outdated. However, it's not that simple. Yeon-kyung begins to observe Heo Im's work more closely. She sees that he's actually helping patients, and it causes her confusion. Her beliefs begin to waver. She is faced with her own internal conflict. On the one hand, she believes in modern medicine, in which she has trained and achieved success. On the other hand, she cannot deny the results that Heo Im brings. These contradictions accumulate, and her attitude towards him becomes more and more ambiguous. Meanwhile, a new complicated case appears at the hospital. A young woman is admitted in serious condition with a rare disease that the doctors can't diagnose. Choi Yeon-kyung and her colleagues try to help her in every way they can, but the treatment fails to produce the expected results. The patient continues to suffer, and Yeon-kyung finds no answer to save her. At that moment, Heo Im notices that the woman's symptoms are similar to one of the old diseases he treated in Joseon. He offers his help, but Yeon-kyung refuses at first. But seeing the patient's deteriorating condition, Yeon-kyung decides to take a chance. She gives Heo Im permission to carry out the treatment. His methods are once again surprising to everyone, but the effect does not last long. The woman's condition begins to improve, And this is a turning point for Yeon-kyung. Her beliefs begin to crumble, and she thinks more and more that maybe traditional medicine has its own strengths that she hadn't noticed before. During this time, Heo Im continues to search for a way to return to Joseon. Although the modern world opens up many new and interesting things for him, he feels that his place is in the past. But with each passing day, his attachment to modernity and to Yeon-kyung grows stronger. He begins to realize that his mission may not only be to return to Joseon, but also to help people in the here and now. Against this backdrop, the relationship between Heo Im and Choi Yeon-kyung continues to grow. Despite their constant disagreements, respect appears between them. Yeon-kyung begins to see Heo Im not just as a doctor from the past, but as a colleague whose knowledge can complement her own. They begin to learn from each other, and this shared experience gradually brings them closer together. Although they are both not ready to admit it, their mutual affection becomes more and more evident. But Heo Im is faced with a difficult choice. He must decide whether he will stay in the modern world or return to his era. He realizes that his abilities can be useful in both the past and present, but he needs to find his purpose. This internal conflict grows stronger, especially as he begins to realize that his feelings for Yeon-kyung are deepening. Now he's not sure he can leave it all behind so easily. After treating a complicated case with traditional medicine, Choi Yeon-kyung begins to question her previous beliefs more and more. She realizes that Heo Im's Eastern medicine may not just be an archaic practice, but something deeper that deserves respect and understanding. However, her rational part is still not ready to fully accept methods that seem insufficiently scientific to her. Nevertheless, her interest in Heo Im's skills grows, and she begins to look more and more closely at his techniques, observing his work and trying to understand what makes his methods so effective. Meanwhile, Heo Im, adapting to the modern world, realizes that his knowledge and skills can actually benefit people even in the future. He still continues to look for ways to return to Joseon, but with each passing day, he finds it harder and harder to decide what he really wants. The modern world is beginning to fascinate him, and there's a thin thread of understanding and respect in his relationship with Yeon-kyung that he can't ignore. One day, a patient arrives at the hospital with a serious illness that requires immediate surgical intervention. Choi Yeon-kyung, as a leading cardiac surgeon, takes on the case. Her professionalism and skills are top-notch, and the medical team is confident of her success. However, during the operation, a complication occurs that jeopardizes the patient's life. All the usual methods do not work, and the situation becomes critical. The doctors lose hope, but Heo Im offers his services, saying that he can stabilize the patient's condition with his methods. Yeon-kyung is once again faced with a dilemma at this point. She can't give up the scientific method she's believed in all her life, but at the same time she realizes that the situation is spiraling out of control. She hesitates but still gives Heo Im a chance. He manages to stabilize the patient with acupuncture, and it saves a life. This incident further strengthens her inner conflict. She begins to realize that there are things that she cannot explain scientifically, but she cannot deny them. Heo Im also begins to realize that Eastern and Western medicine can complement each other. He admires Yeon-kyung's skill as a surgeon and begins to see how their approaches to treatment can combine to benefit patients. It's a difficult discovery for him, too, as he's used to thinking his traditional methods are the best, but now realizes that modern technology can also save lives. Against this backdrop, their relationship begins to change. Yeon-kyung and Heo Im gradually grow closer, respecting each other not only as professionals but also as people with different but equally valuable approaches to life. Their conversations become increasingly personal. Yeon-kyung tells Heo Im about her life, how she lost her parents as a child, and how that influenced her choice of profession. She confesses that her firm belief in science is a way to control things that can't be controlled, like death. She is afraid of losing someone else, which is why she is so focused on modern treatments where everything can be measured, predicted, and fixed. Heo Im responds by sharing his story of how his knowledge and skills were honed by years of practicing in Joseon. He tells how he helped poor people who couldn't afford treatment from other doctors, and how he always strived to ensure that his knowledge was used for the benefit of the people, not for fame. He talks about his disappointment after his ambitions were not recognized by the royal court, and how that led him to his current world. Something more than just professional respect develops between them. Yeon-kyung begins to see Heo Im not just as a doctor from the past, but as someone who has also gone through his own personal tragedies and found his purpose in this world. They become closer and closer despite their inner doubts and differences in worldview. However, the conflict between them still remains. Yeon-kyung continues to believe that science should come first, while Heo Im increasingly sees the value in combining tradition and modernity. This internal conflict intensifies when Yeon-kyung encounters a patient who cannot be cured with scientific methods alone. She is forced to turn to Heo Im for help, but it requires a great deal of effort on her part to recognize that her knowledge may not always be sufficient. After many joint medical cases and professional conflicts, Heo Im and Choi Yeon continue to work together despite their constant arguments over treatment approaches. Their views on medicine are still very different. Heo Im insists on the importance of traditional Eastern medicine, while Yeon-kyung stays true to her scientific methods. However, they both begin to notice that their methods can work much more effectively when they join forces. A patient arrives at the hospital with a rare disease that has the doctor stumped. Current diagnostic methods don't give a clear picture, and the patient's condition worsens by the hour. Yeon-kyung is desperate to find a solution, trying every possible treatment option, but all to no avail. Seeing her powerlessness, Heo Im offers his own perspective on the problem based on his knowledge of Oriental medicine. He suggests trying the acupuncture method to relieve and stabilize the patient's condition. This time Yeon-kyung is less adamant in her refusal. Seeing that other methods aren't working, she decides to give Heo Im a chance. It's not an easy decision, but she realizes that she can't let her pride get in the way of saving the patient's life. Heo Im applies acupuncture, and soon the patient's condition begins to improve. This comes as a surprise to other doctors who are still skeptical of traditional medicine methods. For Yeon-kyung, this is another blow to her beliefs. She begins to realize that medicine, whether Eastern or Western, has the same goal: to save lives. Her previous dogmas are beginning to crack at the seams, and now she cannot so easily ignore what she sees before her. Heo Im proves through her work that traditional methods can be effective too, and in some cases even life-saving. This becomes a lesson in humility for Yeon-kyung, and she begins to open herself up to new knowledge. In parallel, Heo Im becomes more and more accustomed to the modern world. Despite his initial longing to return to Joseon, he begins to marvel more and more at the possibilities of modern medicine. Computers, X-rays, and surgical procedures are all like magic to him in ways he never imagined. He learns from Yeon-kyung and her colleagues, and despite his old beliefs, he sees that modern medicine has its great advantages. The relationship between Heo Im and Yeon-kyung continues to grow. Their professional respect grows into something more. They begin to spend more time together, discussing not only medical issues but also personal topics. Yeon-kyung shares more and more about how she feels responsible for her patients and why she chose cardiac surgery. She tells Heo Im about losing her parents at an early age and how that influenced her decision to become a doctor to help the people she can save. For Heo Im, these conversations reveal Yeon-kyung from a different perspective. He begins to realize that her strictness and integrity come not from a desire to be right, but from a fear of losing control over life and death. In turn, he shares with her his stories of life in Joseon, how he treated people in the villages and saved those who couldn't afford treatment from wealthy doctors. After Heo Im saves a patient using traditional medicine again, his reputation at the hospital grows. Patients begin to seek his help, and his methods become more in demand. However, despite this, Heo Im continues to feel an internal struggle. He still can't get rid of the thought that he needs to return to Joseon, because there are patients and unfinished business waiting for him there. But every time he thinks about it, his growing feelings for Choi Yeon-kyung and his attachment to the modern world make him hesitate. At this time, Choi Yeon-kyung is also facing personal internal conflicts. On the one hand, she begins to respect Heo Im more and more for his incredible medical skills and his ability to help patients where modern methods are not always effective. On the other hand, she continues to struggle with her beliefs in the superiority of scientific methods and her faith in progress. Nevertheless, she increasingly begins to seek advice from Heo Im, recognizing that his traditional methods can be helpful, especially in difficult cases where science is powerless. One day, a patient arrives at the hospital who is unresponsive to any treatment. Choi Yeon-kyung is in despair as all her scientific knowledge and methods fail to produce results. She realizes that the patient's only chance is to seek help from Heo Im, though her rational mind still resists the decision. Eventually realizing that she has no other choice, she asks Heo Im to perform the treatment. Heo Im agrees to help, but this time he feels that his methods may not be enough. The patient's condition is complicated, and even his experience does not give him full confidence of success. Nevertheless, he proceeds with the treatment, using his proven method of acupuncture while observing the patient's reaction. Yeon-kyung and the other doctors watch the process tensely, not believing in success but hoping for a miracle. The patient slowly begins to recover. For Yeon-kyung, this is further proof that traditional methods can work where modern medicine is powerless. She realizes that medical science is more than just the mechanical application of technology, and that a doctor must be able to combine different approaches to save a life. Her respect for Heo Im only grows stronger, and their professional interaction becomes even closer. Amidst these successes, however, a sense of unease grows in Heo Im. He begins to notice that his stay in modernity may be dragging on. Despite all the benefits he brings to his patients, he cannot forget his life in Joseon, where people also need his help. His inner conflict intensifies. He is no longer sure where he really belongs. Staying in this time brings him new knowledge and experiences, but also keeps him from returning to his native era. The relationship between Heo Im and Yeon-kyung develops in parallel. Their work together brings them closer together, not only as co-workers, but also as people. They begin to spend more time together, and their conversations become more and more personal. Yeon-kyung begins to open up to Heo Im, talking about her fears and insecurities, how she's afraid of losing control when she can't help a patient. This revelation affects Heo Im, who has always thought of himself as someone who can cure any disease, but now realizes that sometimes medicine is powerless over fate. This new level of trust between them sets the stage for deeper feelings. Heo Im increasingly thinks about how much his life has changed since he met Yeon-kyung. He begins to realize that his affection for her is more than just respect. He realizes that his choice to stay in modernity or return to Joseon is now not only about medicine, but also about his feelings for her. After several successful hospital treatments, Heo Im is becoming an increasingly prominent figure in the medical community of the modern world. His acupuncture skills continue to attract patients who are not helped by traditional medicine. But along with the recognition grows his inner contradictions. The more he helps people, the more he feels connected to this time, but his duty to his native Joseon does not disappear. Choi Yeon-kyung, watching Heo Im's work, begins to respect him more and more as a doctor. Despite her initial doubts, she recognizes that his methods are effective and begins to see him as an equal partner in treatment. However, their differences of opinion are still evident. Yeon-kyung believes that modern medicine is the future, and although she sees the benefits of Heo Im's traditional methods, she still continues to rely on science and technology. During one of their cases together, a patient is admitted to the hospital with a very rare and complicated diagnosis. The doctors desperately try to find a solution, but none of their methods yield results. Choi Yeon-kyung, as the lead surgeon, takes charge of the treatment, but after several failed attempts, she realizes that this may be a case where science is powerless. Seeing the patient suffering and feeling helpless, Yeon-kyung decides to ask Heo Im for help. For her, this is a step that requires overcoming her pride because she has always believed that science is the only right path. However, her respect for Heo Im's skills and the realization that the patient's life is on the line make her recognize that Eastern medicine has something to offer that she doesn't understand. She suggests that Heo Im perform the treatment to try to save the patient. Heo Im agrees, although he realizes that his methods cannot always guarantee success. He applies his acupuncture skills to ease the patient's condition, and it soon becomes apparent that the patient is beginning to recover. This case becomes yet another confirmation for Yeon-kyung that medicine is not only a science but also an art that can take many forms. She begins to realize that perhaps the truth lies somewhere in the middle between traditional knowledge and modern technology. Against the backdrop of this professional interaction, the relationship between Heo Im and Yeon begins to deepen. Their mutual understanding grows, and they begin to spend more time together outside of the hospital. Yeon-kyung opens up to Heo Im, telling him about her fears and the challenges she faces as a doctor. She confesses that she sometimes feels helpless when she can't save her patients, and that her faith in science stems from the fact that it's the only thing she can rely on in times like these. Heo Im in turn shares his doubts about his place in this world. He says that while he enjoys helping people here in modern times, he still feels that his duty remains in Joseon. He begins to think that perhaps his stay here is a temporary mission, and he'll have to return when he's accomplished everything he's supposed to. But the more time they spend together, the stronger the emotional bond between them becomes. Yeon-kyung begins to realize that her feelings for Heo Im go beyond professional respect. She grows increasingly attached to him, but is afraid to admit it to herself, fearing that their different worlds and times will never allow them to be together. Heo Im also feels growing feelings for her, but he still can't shake the idea that he belongs in the past. After Heo Im is faced with the possibility of returning to Joseon, his inner conflict intensifies. He constantly reflects on his duty to the people of his era, for there are patients and unfinished business waiting for him there. However, each new day in the modern world and his growing feelings for Choi Yeon-kyung make him question his choices. He realizes that he has become much more entangled with this time than he originally thought. Meanwhile, Yeon-kyung, though unaware of all of Heo Im's experiences, begins to sense that something is changing in their relationship. She notices that he's become more thoughtful and distant. Although she tries not to interfere with his private thoughts, she can't shake the feeling that their paths may soon part. She fears that their connection will be temporary, and that one day Heo Im will disappear from her life as suddenly as he appeared. At the same time, a new critical situation occurs at the hospital. They receive a patient with a rare and dangerous disease, which again puts the doctors in a stalemate. Modern methods cannot fully diagnose the cause of the disease, and Yeon-kyung, despite her faith in scientific approaches, finds herself in a desperate situation. She is forced to turn to Heo Im for help again, realizing that his methods may give the patient a new chance. Heo Im agrees to help, but this time his feelings are mixed with worry. He realizes that this may be his last case in the modern world, and his decision to return to Joseon becomes increasingly inevitable. Nevertheless, he focuses on the task at hand. Acupuncture helps stabilize the patient's condition, and the treatment is once again successful. This success brings Heo Im further recognition among his peers, but the struggle within him continues. After the successful treatment, Yeon-kyung decides to talk to Heo Im and ask what's going on. She senses that he's on the verge of some important decision, but doesn't realize what that choice is. In the conversation, she expresses her gratitude for all the cases where his methods have helped save patients and confesses that her opinion of Eastern medicine has changed a lot. She also says that she is afraid of losing him, not even fully realizing how deep her feelings are. Heo Im opens up to her. He tells her that he has been looking for a way to return to Joseon for some time now, and that his place is in his native era, where his patience and duty to the people await him. He admits that the modern world has opened up many new things for him and given him more than he could have expected, but his heart still belongs to his time. He also makes no secret that his decision didn't come easily, especially because of their growing feelings for each other. For Yeon-kyung, these words come as a heavy blow. She realizes that despite their differences, she has fallen in love with Heo Im and is not ready to break up with him. However, she understands his feelings and cannot force him to stay in modernity against his will. This moment becomes a test for both of them. They must decide if they are willing to let go of each other so that each can fulfill their destiny. After an emotional conversation with Choi Yeon-kyung, Heo Im begins preparations to return to Joseon. He realizes that this is his chance to return home and complete everything he left unfinished. Despite his deep feelings for Yeon-kyung, he makes the decision to fulfill his duty to his native era and the people who need his help. However, the thought of leaving the world that has given him so much and the person with whom he has formed such a close bond is a difficult one for him. Choi Yeon-kyung continues to work at the hospital, trying to concentrate on her patients and not think about breaking up with Heo Im. But her thoughts keep returning to him. She realizes that she's fallen in love, and the feeling becomes hard for her, as she can't keep him in the present day. Yeon-kyung respects his choice, but the fear of his impending loss keeps her on her toes. She doesn't want to see him go, but she knows he must return to where he's welcome. They continue to work together on another difficult case. A patient with a rare and serious disease is admitted to the hospital, which again causes difficulties for the medical team. Yeon-kyung, as always, acts professionally, using all the possibilities of modern medicine, but the results are insufficient. The patient does not respond to the treatment and the situation becomes critical. At this point, Heo Im decides to take the initiative. He realizes that this may be his last case at this time, and his responsibility for the patient increases. He offers to apply his traditional treatment methods, and Yeon-kyung, despite her grief and inner doubts, agrees. She realizes that now that his decision has been made, she must support him every step of the way. Heo Im administers the acupuncture treatment, using all his knowledge and experience accumulated over many years of practice. This time he feels a special responsibility, realizing that this could be his parting gift to the world. As a result, the patient's condition begins to improve, and the doctors observing this process are once again amazed at how effectively traditional methods work. After successful treatment, the tension between Heo Im and Yeon-kyung reaches a peak. Both realize that their time together is coming to an end, and this leads to a difficult but frank conversation. Yeon-kyung thanks Heo Im for everything he's done for her patients and herself. She confesses that his presence has changed her perspective on medicine and life in general. Heo Im also thanks her for showing him a new world and helping him better understand that medicine is more than just a method, it is an art of caring for people that transcends time. They both realize that their bond is more than just working together. Their feelings are mutual, but the difference in their worlds and times makes a future together impossible. They decide not to say goodbye bitterly, but to leave in their hearts gratitude for the moment they were able to share. After Heo Im returns to Joseon, he is once again immersed in his familiar life. The people who have been waiting for him are grateful for his return, and Heo Im once again becomes someone who is respected and appreciated for his skill. However, despite his outward confidence, he feels that something has changed. The moments he spent with Choi Yeon-kyung keep popping up in his mind, and their feelings are still alive in his heart. He realizes that despite his return, a part of his soul has remained in the modern world. His work in Joseon once again occupies all of his time. Heo Im has been treating patients using his traditional methods, but now that he has been exposed to modern medicine, he is beginning to see where his methods can be improved or supplemented with knowledge from the future. He tries to incorporate these ideas into his practices, much to the surprise of those around him, but gradually it takes its toll. However, his inner conflict does not leave him. He feels divided between two worlds. Meanwhile, Choi Yeon-kyung, left behind in the modern world, tries to return to her normal life. She continues to work at the hospital, saving lives and using her medical skills, but her thoughts keep returning to Heo Im. She begins to see the world differently because of his influence. Her approach to medicine becomes more open-minded, and she begins to think more often about how knowledge from traditional medicine can be used to benefit patients. This brings her a new perspective on the profession, but also pain over loss. For both characters, time passes, but the memories won't let go. Heo Im feels that despite his duty to his people, his heart belongs to another world, and this thought constantly torments him. He begins to wonder if he made the right choice in returning to Joseon, and if he should have stayed with Yeon-kyung. Now, however, there are centuries between them again, and it seems to him that the way back is closed. At the same time, Yeon-kyung increasingly feels that her life without Heo Im has lost something important. Although she continues to be a successful doctor, her personal life feels empty. She realizes that her feelings for Heo Im were much stronger than she imagined, and that losing him has left a wound in her heart that she doesn't know how to heal. Both characters realize that their love has been stronger than time, but in their situations it seems that they can't be together again. Heo Im's life in Joseon returns to its normal rhythm, but his state of mind remains troubled. He continues to treat his patients with the same dedication as before, but every treatment, every case reminds him of Choi Yeon-kyung the time in the future. He begins to realize that his experiences in modern times have changed him forever, not just as a doctor, but as a person. The knowledge he's gained and the feelings he's experienced no longer allow him to live his life the same way. Meanwhile, Choi Yeon-kyung is still immersed in her work, trying to distract herself from the pain of loss. She knows that Heo Im is not coming back and is trying to come to terms with it. However, her inner world has completely changed. She now realizes that medicine is not only a science, but also an art of caring for human beings, combining different approaches. Thanks to Heo Im, she has become more flexible and open-minded, and this helps her become an even better doctor. But despite her professional successes, she can't forget Heo Im, and his absence puts more and more pressure on her. One day, after another difficult day at the hospital, Yeon-kyung receives unusual news. She is informed of a patient who describes symptoms similar to those she treated with Heo Im. This triggers a wave of memories and emotions for her. The patient turns out to be someone who is surprisingly connected to Heo Im's story, and this gives Yeon-kyung a new impetus to reflect on the fact that their paths with Heo Im are not yet complete. On the other side of time, Heo Im also faces a new mystery in Joseon. He begins to notice that some patients are suffering from unusual illnesses that remind him of cases he has encountered in the modern world. This makes him wonder if his being in the future was no accident. Perhaps fate is preparing another opportunity for him to return. As time passes, Heo Im feels more and more that his life in Joseon is no longer as satisfying as it used to be. The desire to see Yeon-kyung again grows in him, and the feeling becomes almost unbearable. He realizes that his life is incomplete without her, despite all he's done for the people in his era. At this point, he begins to look for ways to travel through time again and find his way back to her. Choi Yeon-kyung, for her part, begins to feel that there is still a connection between their worlds. She intuitively senses that Heo Im is thinking of her, and it inspires her to keep hoping for a miracle. She doesn't know how or when it might happen, but her faith in their connection gives her the strength to keep moving forward. After much thought, Heo Im realizes that he belongs with Choi Yeon-kyung in the modern world. His heart is drawn to her, and he realizes that without her, life in Joseon is no longer as satisfying as it used to be. He begins to earnestly search for a way to return to the future, where not only love but also new challenges in medicine await him. Every day he spends in Joseon reminds him that he has changed and can no longer live as he used to. Meanwhile, in modern Seoul, Choi Yeon-kyung continues to feel an inner connection with Heo Im. Despite all the pain, she hasn't given up hope that he will return someday. Her professional life goes on, but every case she treats reminds her more and more of Heo Im and how his traditional methods helped her change her perspective on medicine. This knowledge inspires her in her work, but her heart remains restless. Unexpectedly, Heo Im finds a way to return to the future. He encounters a mystical phenomenon similar to the one that transported him to modern times the first time. He realizes that this is his chance to cross the boundaries of time again. Despite his fear of the unknown, and the realization that his return to Joseon may be his last, he decides to take the risk for the sake of being with Yeon-kyung again. In the moment of displacement, Heo Im finds himself back in the modern world, on the same streets of Seoul where he found himself the first time. He feels more confident this time around because now he knows what he wants. He is determined to find Choi Yeon-kyung and continue their life together. However, the city still looks foreign to him, and he has to adjust to the new world again. Meanwhile, Choi Yeon-kyung continues her work at the hospital. She is becoming increasingly recognized for her new treatment methods, which combine traditional and modern approaches. Her colleagues notice the changes in her methods and approach to patients, but no one knows about her inner struggle and longing for Heo Im. When Heo Im finds Choi Yeon-kyung, their meeting is filled with emotion. They both realize that their feelings haven't changed, and the separation has only made them stronger. For Yeon-kyung, it's like the fulfillment of her deepest dream. She can't believe that he's here with her again and that they now have a second chance. Heo Im is also incredibly relieved and happy that he was able to come back and now they can be together. After reuniting, Heo Im and Choi Yeon-kyung try to enjoy every moment together, realizing that their time may be limited. They both realize that their bond is stronger than time, and now their main goal is to appreciate every day they are given. Heo Im begins to slowly adapt to the modern world again, though his knowledge and methods of traditional medicine sometimes seem foreign in the high-tech environment of the hospital. But with Yeon-kyung's encouragement, he finds his place among her colleagues. Now Heo Im and Yeon-kyung work together as a complete team. They join forces to treat patients by combining traditional treatments with modern medical technology. Their approach produces incredible results, and even Yeon-kyung's most skeptical colleagues begin to respect Heo Im for his unique abilities. Patients increasingly turn to them, and their tandem becomes known throughout the hospital. Although their professional lives are going well, their personal moments remain filled with anxiety. They both realize that the magic that brought Heo Im into the modern world remains unpredictable. It could disappear again at any moment. This thought haunts them, but they decide not to let fear cloud their present. Instead, they focus on their work and on spending as much time together as possible. Choi Yeon-kyung sees Heo Im opening up more and more to the modern world, bringing his unique experiences to the table. He becomes not only a doctor but also a teacher to her colleagues. His knowledge, accumulated through centuries of tradition, surprises and inspires everyone around him. Yeon-kyung realizes that his influence has changed not only her, but the entire medical world he has entered. Heo Im and Choi Yeon-kyung's lives are gradually taking a new direction. They have learned to find a balance between their professional responsibilities and their personal feelings. Although the magical threat of Heo Im's return to Joseon still hangs over them, they try not to dwell on it and continue working together in a satisfying way. Their tandem becomes more and more popular in the hospital. Both patients and colleagues are now seeing how successful cases become when they join forces. The joint treatments, in which Heo Im uses traditional techniques and Yeon-kyung uses modern medical approaches, are showing impressive results. Their patients are beginning to recover faster, and many doctors are even becoming interested in traditional Oriental medicine, something no one could have imagined before. However, despite professional successes, Heo Im cannot completely get rid of feelings of anxiety. The magical influence that transported him into the future remains unexplained, and he realizes that he has no control over his destiny. Every time something strange or inexplicable happens, he fears it as a sign that the time to return to Joseon is approaching. His heart is torn between his duty to his era and his desire to stay with Choi Yeon-kyung. One day, they encounter a particularly difficult case. A patient is admitted in critical condition, and the situation seems hopeless. Modern methods are failing and the patient's condition is deteriorating rapidly. Choi Yeon-kyung and her team do their best, but their attempts to stabilize the patient have no effect. At this point, Heo Im decides to use his technique, knowing that this may be his last chance. As Heo Im begins the treatment, the situation becomes tense. All eyes are fixed on him and everyone is waiting for a miracle. After a long and elaborate treatment, the patient begins to recover. This is another success for Heo Im and Choi Yeon-kyung, and their work together proves again that medicine based on a combination of the two approaches can work wonders. After Heo Im experiences strange visions and weakness, his anxiety increases. He begins to realize that magic is manifesting again, and this could mean that his time in the modern world is coming to an end. His heart grows heavy, for this could mean a final farewell to Choi Yeon-kyung, whom he doesn't want to leave. However, he doesn't tell her about his suspicions, trying not to alarm her. He decides to hide his anxiety by continuing to work and hoping that his fears will turn out to be false. Meanwhile, Choi Yeon-kyung notices that Heo Im has become more withdrawn and brooding. She senses that something is wrong with him, and though he doesn't say anything, she becomes concerned. Their professional successes continue, but there is a subtle shadow of insecurity and fear of the future in their relationship. Yeon-kyung doesn't know what exactly is going on, but she's afraid of losing Heo Im. Amidst these events, a new patient with a serious condition shows up at the hospital. He suffers from a rare and aggressive disease that is rapidly progressing. Modern medicine proves powerless, and Yeon-kyung once again turns to Heo Im for help. This time, however, despite his confidence in his abilities, he feels he can't pull it off. The magical signs he's feeling more and more often are weakening his confidence, and he fears that it might affect his ability to treat. As they begin to treat the patient, Heo Im's condition gets worse. He continues to experience visions from Joseon, as if his consciousness is gradually being transported to another time. This affects his ability to concentrate, and Choi Yeon-kyung notices his uncertainty. She tries to understand what's going on, but Heo Im avoids talking, afraid to admit the truth even to himself. Finally, during one of the night shifts when they are working on a patient together, Heo Im decides to tell Yeon-kyung about his fears. He confesses that magic is making itself known again, and that perhaps his time in the modern world is coming to an end. He explains that he's no longer in control of his presence here, and that a return to Joseon could happen at any moment. These words shock Yeon-kyung. She realizes that she might lose Heo Im again, and this time forever. Her heart breaks with pain, but she tries to stay strong for his sake. Together they make a decision. No matter how much time they have left, they will use every moment to be there for each other. They continue to treat the patient, hoping that they will be able to save him despite the circumstances. Time is inexorably coming to an end for Heo Im. His visions from Joseon are becoming more frequent and stronger. He realizes that his connection to the past will soon be restored, and he will find himself back in his era. However, the thought of having to leave Choi Yeon-kyung presses on him harder every day. They both realize that the inevitable is coming, but continue to cling to every minute they spend together. Meanwhile, at the hospital they face their final test. A patient whose condition continues to deteriorate needs complicated treatment. Heo Im and Choi Yeon-kyung join forces to try to save him. It's not just a case, it's the last case together for them, and they realize that a lot will change after this. During the treatment, Heo Im experiences more and more weakness. He feels the magic starting to pull him back, but he keeps fighting to stay here at least a little longer. Yeon-kyung notices his fatigue and anxiety but realizes that this moment could be their goodbye. They both focus on the patient, trying not to think about their own fears. When the treatment is completed and the patient begins to recover, they both feel a sense of relief and pride in their work together. But the joy is overshadowed by the fact that Heo Im can feel his body beginning to fade away. He realizes that the time has come. Yeon-kyung, seeing this, can't hold back her tears, but she knows she has to let him go. Heo Im says goodbye to her, promising that he'll always remember her and their time together. They hug one last time, and Heo Im disappears, returning to his era. Choi Yeon-kyung is left alone, feeling empty but also realizing that their love and work together has changed her forever. He returns to Joseon, realizing that he now has knowledge and experience that he didn't have before. Although he lost the opportunity to stay with Yeon-kyung, he knows that his time with her has made him a better person. He continues to live in Joseon, keeping the memories of her and the moments they shared in his heart.